Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Get rid of the monitoring headphones here. Garth, go get some coffee. That's crazy. So, this morning is a story of failure, of dashed dreams, and other such stuff. But it's not without interest, so we'll still proceed with what I intended to cover this morning. But anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about um, sort of the software development life cycle. Trina, I'll make this short. So basically, somebody envisions some kind of or experiences a problem. Let's start there. So you got your customer or whoever it is. Somebody's got a problem to solve, and for whatever reason, they think that the best way to solve it is with technology, specifically a software program. Um, that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes the best solution to a problem is to throw people at it, um, instead of throwing a server on the fire. But and I'm not suggesting that you barbecue people. That's not what I really mean there. But sometimes a problem is better solved with people. Um, let's use an analogy. My favorite topic: artificial intelligence, which is certainly artificial and not intelligent. Um, could be a useful tool in certain circumstances. I mean, spell check works great. I could use a better spell check. Something that actually knows the context or understands the context of the meaning when it's doing a spell check. That'd be useful. Okay. I went to elementary school in the 70s. We cheated on spelling. So, anyway, I digress. Um, so there are certain problems that are amenable to a software solution or a technological solution. So a customer might engage with somebody who, like myself, knows how to do software. Um, they'll want to start going right into the solution. They already have in their mind some idea of what they want to do, and they'll skip over explaining what the problem is. So, as an analyst, a business analyst, a requirements capture person, whatever you want to call it, sometimes the developer wears that hat too. Your job is to kind of reel them back in and have them describe what problem they're solving. Describe what we call the as is solution or the as is situation and the to be situation. Where do they want to go? Um, Eric, you're not. What? You're not in frame. What do you mean by I'm not in frame? Okay, not sure what that means. Anyway, so you can, yeah, I totally lost my train of thought there. Okay, so you start talking to the customer about, what their situation is. And then you go on to the next step in the process, which is you start investigating possible solutions. This is where you still have an opportunity to say, you should throw people at this problem. Um, but you can go further than that. You start looking at, you start building what I call a crystal palace, right? And turret by turret, you're trying to imagine the entire solution at the same time that you're picking out what the door frame trim is going to look like on your castle. Um, and it's made out of crystal because it could easily someone could throw a rock at it anytime and shatter it. So you do that. Maybe it's traditional waterfall. Maybe you're doing, you start doing an agile approach where you try to break down the solution into chunks and stuff. Anyway. Oh, okay, David. David, you should get real internet. Oh, wait a minute. You do have real internet. So, not the internet we were promised, but the internet that we have. That's a subject for another day. So you break down the problem. You get a team together to work out a solution and stuff, and you start working on it, and you have a preconceived notion of where you're going to go. It may not be all the details, but you have a general gist of an idea of where you're going to end up. And you work on the parts of it. To make a long story short here, eventually you get to the point where if you're doing agile, you start showing the customer and they're involved in the process right away so that they can see where you're headed with it. You can make pivot and change direction and deal with issues that come up where they go, oh, I see what you're thinking about doing here. Yeah, it's not going to work for me, and here's why. Or, no, you totally don't understand what I'm trying to do. Let me explain it to you again. Whatever, so you can pivot. Or if you're doing traditional waterfall development, you get all the way to the end product and say, here you go, and that's the first time the customer sees it. And that's a complete, usually a disaster. Anyway, well, what I was trying to do today, let me show you my screen. Hang on here. So, many of us, probably all of us, have seen the videos of Steve Jobs showing off the Macintosh for the first time. I think this video is from a board meeting, but it's still the same presentation. And in it, there was this particular feature that I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I'd like to reproduce this. So let me show it to you briefly. Come on, internet. That's it. I just wanted to do that marquee. Now, they did it with a single computer. So I came up with the crazy idea of when I'm at VCF Midwest, and I intend to get a table this time, I plan on setting up, yeah, whatever, it's a segment. I don't care if it's a copyright claim or not. When I go to VCF Midwest, if I can get a table, I intend to set up multiple Macintoshes so that people can sit down and play some of my HyperCard games, whatever. But I wanted to have some kind of a screensaver-ish thing going. Last year at VCF Midwest, there were several people, Steve from Mac 84 TV, and Ron of Ron's Computer Videos, were both a little concerned that I was going to do some screen burn-in on the SE that I was giving away. I had setting up on the counter, so they scrambled around and got After Dark installed so that it would have a screensaver and stuff like that. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. I should do some kind of screensaver. And I thought, well, I could take this. Let me switch back cameras, sorry. I could take this concept, and since I'm going to have several Macs there, I could do a marquee going across the Macintoshes. So that all the Macs that are sitting there, 4 of them, whatever, would be synchronized, and it would do that kind of a marquee across the screen. So let me... And of course I want to build it in HyperCard, because that's what I do. Get rid of this screen. Had an idea of how I could do it. I can use Apple Talk events. HyperCard stacks can talk to each other on different computers using that, and they could coordinate their activities so that they could do this scrolling marquee. Let's get back to the desktop. There it is. And here you go. To make it a little easier to work on, I used QEMU, QEMU. I don't know how you're supposed to say this emulator's name. It's a nice emulator. Normally I use Mini VMac, but these need to Apple Talk. HyperCard doesn't perform great in Basilisk 2. Any of the graphics kind of manipulation is slow. People have fixed it in various places. But anyway, long story short, I thought I'd give QEMU a try. Not bad. So my computer is running a little pokey right now because I got 6 instances of this running. But you can see the idea. And because of space limitations, it's 2-tiered. But, you know, I've got hello with a space going across. I've got each of these instances set up so that they know the program address for the HyperCard stack on the computer to the next computer in the sequence, and it wraps back around from the end back to the beginning. So the idea here is that I could have the H computer tell the E computer, hey, you're getting an H, you need to display it. And when it gets the message to display that H, it says, oh, I've got an E, I need to pass that on to the next computer in the sequence, ad nauseum. All right, so I've got it all set up to run here, and it does just 10 iterations of it because it's kind of hard to interrupt. And if I get into the first emulator here and hit send, you can see it try to send the next thing over. So the first one has sent the H to the second computer. And it's already confused. So it's not quite working right. I'm not sure what's going on with the fifth computer. Get out of this. So this one right here, I don't know why it's not getting the right message. Yeah, it's like a game of telephone using PhoneNet, right? Apple Talk. So it does kind of work, but you can see the problem I'm running into already. It's pretty damn slow. Okay, it just did the next one. But it's so slow that it's not a screensaver. It sits there long enough, you're going to get screen burn in. So, anyway, proof of concept. So this is a failure because it didn't do what I intended. It's not going to solve the problem the way I wanted it. Maybe there's another approach I could take where it doesn't rely on communication between the computers, but then you got to synchronize the timing. You know, that's going to be another problem. But, you know, the joke is, if I were a surgeon and this were the patient, the surgery was a complete success. Unfortunately, the patient died. So, you know, maybe it would work on real hardware better. I'll try that. You know, I've got enough machines where I could do, you know, set up at least 3 or 4 that way. Probably I could do all 6. But yeah, that's my point, Gut Bomb. I learned something from this. Because what I want to do is to have multiplayer games. And I want to use this kind of communication technique on Global Talk so that you could play multiplayer games. Or at least have two people be able to play a two-player game together. Um, and if you've got a person or people in the mix and they have to think to play the game, or if it takes a little bit of time to do stuff like you got to roll dice, the communication between the computers could probably keep up just fine. Um, I did a little proof of concept for Global Talk where I had uh, sort of a tic-tac-toe game where the rules don't require you to take turns. You just try to fill in the squares as quickly as you can and win. And that thing gets a little bogged down and times out if you try to go too fast. It's a slow network protocol. So it was a success in the sense that I learned something, and it only took me, I don't know, I probably wasted about 3 hours altogether fiddling around with it. Yeah, Hyper Yahtzee. Um, there's I think the HyperCard team created a battleship game that's available out there as a HyperCard stack. I need to download that and pick it apart and see what they did there. Um, maybe my technique for doing this is offbeat. Maybe I need to wrap the code in the idle uh, process and do timing that way so that it's not trying to immediately communicate as soon as it gets a message. There's things I could fiddle around with it, but it's pretty slow. So I'm thinking it probably isn't going to go anywhere, at least for this purpose. But um, so getting back to software development, you want to fail early and often. Um, you don't want to do a waterfall project where you're going to develop everything and then find out at the end that it's a complete failure towards the end of the project. You don't want to know, which is one of the strengths of Agile, is that you actually do stuff, show it to the customer. They're very involved in the process of developing it, and that way you can adjust as you go. The downside to that is you can get into what I call the spiral of death, where you never finish the project, you just continue to make changes forever, and that's a cautionary tale about that kind of a process. But yeah, anyway, so that was pretty much the topic for today. Let's take a look at the code. Maybe something will pop out. Let me get the right mouse and let me switch to the right screen. So, one of the concepts I had here was that I'd have a server and a client. The server would control the clients and tell them what to display. The problem with that is I'm not sure the timing would be any better, but I could still investigate it. And the server would just say, you've got to do an H, you've got to do an E, you got to do an L, whatever. I think it would probably have just as much trouble with it. But I don't know. We'll see. It's still worth investigating. So let's look at this client code. So, the user interface is pretty easy. You've got, your connect to whatever program you want to be the next one in the sequence. So, there's a dialog that you use to do this. I've got my little display here for the marquee. I've got a log text box so I can see what's going on in the code while it's executing. And let's see, this button kind of kicks it off. Get the code here. So it just calls a send character to display, which has what address you're sending it to and the letter that you want it to do. It's pretty simple. And we're going to the stack where I've got all the code. So there's a function for getting the address. Originally I was going to have this go in two directions. It could go to the left or to the right. And then, so I passed a direction thing, and there were multiple fields, but I'm not going to worry about that. I didn't change the code to clean it up. There's a whole bunch of put statements in here where it's just throwing stuff into that log field so that you can see what's going on in the code. But the first thing I do is I check to see whether or not the direction, the address, is empty. If it is empty, then I know I need to go get one. And what you do is you use answer program, which is a command that will then ask you to pick a program executing on a computer somewhere. You can restrict it to the type of wild, which is the identifier for HyperCard stacks. So that way, when, like I was showing before, if you go to pick a computer, you have to pick the program too, and it restricts it just to picking HyperCard because you're going to send messages to a HyperCard stack. Okay, so, and then it returns, the way answer works is it puts if you have a problem with the result, it puts it in the result. If the result is empty, it sticks it in it. So those are predefined variables. Why they didn't do this as a function, I don't know. It seems like it would have been better to have answer program be a function and just return the value, but that's the way it is. Okay, the next thing down is request get stack name. So the way communication works here, the first time you do a request or a send command to another program that you've got the address of, it has to ask the user whether or not they want to accept those. So it's interactive, requires human intervention. You can't predefine and set this up. You have to actually have that take place, and it allows the stacks to communicate with each other, even if you're using guest access without a password. So what I do is I just ask for the stack name. I'm not validating to make sure it's running the same HyperCard stack or anything. I just did this so that it would kick off that guest security access and get it out of the way so that when I run the program it's not doing it. And getting the stack name is something that I could do for validation. I'm reusing some functionality I did for a game. So you send a request statement to the other program, and it returns a result, or it. But that means that your program, and I'm running the same stack on all the machines, has to have that function available so that it can return the value. And it's just returning the short name of this stack. The next function down is send character to display. And I say which computer I want to send it to and the character I want to send. And this is using a request, which is a function call, so it expects a return value. Instead of sending, which is like firing a handler event or sending a code fragment over to do something, that doesn't expect a return. Request does, and I thought it'd be better if I got a response back before I went on to the next thing. Otherwise you would have some deadlocking where it's trying to communicate too much. Anyway, so then it sends the current character that's displayed in your marquee to the next computer over. And then display character is the function that's called, and it says, oh, save the character I've got because I don't want to wipe it out. Display the character I received, and then send that that character I was displaying to the next computer, so it'll cascade through. What if the stack does not have the function? Yeah, you get back, if you try to call a function that doesn't exist, isn't instantiated, the result that is returned will have an error. And there are several errors that you get. Let me look up the function here. And there's several books that are pretty good for HyperCard. There's two that I really like. And together they serve me pretty well. So the book that I'm using right now is HyperTalk 2.2, the book. And this is by Dan Winkler, who you might recognize, Scott Kamens, and Gene Devoto. This one's arranged by function. So there's an index, or everything's alphabetically by the function or feature that you call. It's got a short section in the front that explains how HyperCard functions, and about writing debug scripts and the basics of HyperCard. But it's mostly just a reference. So let's see if I can get to the request command. And let me see if it tells you. They talk about zones and how the zones work. Okay, here's the error. User canceled the login dialog. The result is set to cancel, the word cancel. The target program couldn't handle the evaluative expression. Evaluate expression. Apple event, the result is set to not handled by target program. The target program timed out. The result is timeout. And the Apple event manager or the target program returned an error number. The result is set to got error number when sending Apple a trademark event. So you get these very specific strings. They're supposed to be human readable instead of just error codes. And they do that a lot in HyperCard, where they'll give you a human readable error. So it does do some error handling. And I could have written the program to check for all these things, but I didn't. I just wrote it to assume it's going to work. So you display the character and then you pass it on to the next one. It's a really simple program. There isn't all that much to it. You got, 1, 2, 6 functions. And a little bit of, not a whole lot of code in there. What if a stack doesn't have the function? Does HyperCard have exceptions or try catch? I would love it if HyperCard was truly object-oriented. It's not. It has similarities with object-oriented languages. But you pretty much have your traditional procedural if-then-else logic. So it doesn't have a concept of try-catch. You don't have true objects. You don't have inheritance. You don't have. You can't extend objects. You can wrap things in code, and you can add handlers and functions to objects. So I could have a button that has extra handlers in it for doing certain things. So instead of it just being you clicked on the button, the mouse was down, the mouse was up. There's handlers that are inherent to those objects. You could add your own, but you have to write code to call them. So you can't wire those up. Well, you can wire them up into. So you could have a mouse up event that would execute a different handler. So you can overwrite or capture that handler and substitute your own. But it's not really object oriented, which is kind of frustrating. If you, as an experiment, I went to ChatGPT and I asked it to write some HyperCard code, and it'll do it. It'll do some HyperTalk programming for you, but it hallucinates and thinks that it has Python features and is truly object oriented, and it's really funny what it comes up with. So it hallucinates it being truly object oriented. So that's a funny exercise. It doesn't seem to do it with BASIC or some of the other languages, probably because there's very few examples out there of HyperTalk code, and I was amazed it did as well as it did, frankly. So, but you certainly couldn't use any of the code. Yeah, it is kind of data oriented. Where it has a lot of features is in string handling. It has chunking expressions, so you can do things like the third word of text field whatever, or it even has a little bit of list manipulation. So you can use a string as sort of a list. You can even define what the delimiter character is for strings. You can use a variable as a container, the same way as you would a field as a container. Buttons are also container objects, so there's that. But it's like you run into a wall almost as soon as you start getting started, and are blocked from doing what you would really love to do. If there had just been several more versions or another decade of HyperCard development, I think there would have been some really nice advancements in it. There's a online project for a browser-based thing. I don't remember what the name of the project is off the top of my head. That what if HyperCard actually had a truly object-oriented language and environment for it? And it's actually pretty darn good. I just kind of poked around the edges of it a little bit for a day. There aren't arrays necessarily, not the way you would think. You use a list in a character string with a delimiter, and those are your arrays. There are XCMDs, external commands and functions that people have written to do array features and to extend the language that way. There's even a relational data model external command that you can use to do tables with not SQL queries, but you can more like a B-tree kind of access for a database with relationships between the entities or the tables. So there's some extensions that have been done to it. You can even change the editor, and someone did write an editor for HyperTalk that will do program completion. So if you start a function, it does the end function statement for you. I've been thinking about fiddling around with that if I can get the source to it, because it would be fun to add things like function completion and things like that. It probably would run slower than Snot, but anyway. So this was the idea. It does run, kind of. It's slow, but it was interesting to try. And Gut Bomb suggested, maybe you could just try to synchronize them, like do a time synchronization. I could have them, the stacks talk to each other, and then try to coordinate when to go, like when they're ready to start, and then they would just start chunking through on a schedule. But I think it would probably get out of sync. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll fiddle around with that next. So what else today? So that's it for the programming part. I did want to talk about something else that I'm working on. I haven't really gotten into it yet. I just ordered the kit. So let me see if I can get my... didn't prepare this camera, so just a moment. Because it probably isn't going to turn on. So let's, while I'm trying to do that, hang on. Come on, Droid Cam. Oh yeah, it is working. So, doop. Talk about the bench. So, I bought a little bit of hardware here. Hang on. Boy. Oh. So I bought this thing. I've been using a Weller that's got a dial on it, and the temperature setting is 1, 2, 3, or 4. It doesn't have any kind of sensors for the temp or anything. I got this for $50 on Marketplace, and the heater works for the hot air station. The soldering tip does not. So, and my repair foo is weak, but I'm learning. So I found a video where somebody said, "Oh, you might have to replace the ceramic heating element in the tip, and here's how you can measure it to see whether or not it's got a break." And I went, "Well, that makes sense." So that's what I did. I measured the resistance in the heating element for the tip, and sure enough, there's a break. So it looks like somebody had been in there before, because I found electrical tape around some things. Yeah, I'm just going to replace the ceramic. So unfortunately, I also this thing didn't come with tips. So I ordered a bunch of tips. And thank you to Sloopy for giving me advice on where to get it from. It cost, $5 in shipping. They came in a few days. Didn't take too long. I wish I had tried the heating element first, because I went back to the same place to order the ceramic. So I'll have to pay shipping again, but oh well. But still, even if, hopefully that's all that's wrong. And the thermistor measures out okay, so I don't need to replace that, I think. There's no break. I checked the cable to the gun to make sure there wasn't a break somewhere in the line for that. And yeah, so hopefully let's see, the tips cost me like $25. The ceramic thing's about 12. I'm still gonna get an hot air station with a soldering temperature controlled soldering tip for less than a new one, probably about half. So that's good. Yeah, I've heard a lot about the pencil. Um, and I've thought about doing that, but I also want a hot air station. And this looked like, the price was too good to give up or to pass up, which obviously was because it wasn't 100% functional, but yeah, it's okay. A little disappointed in the guy that I bought it from because he could have just told me. I probably still would have given him $50, but you know, that's how, people. What are you gonna do? So there's that. So there you go, Trina. There's some hardware for you. Before we go on, let's see who's in the chat. So we have Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. Dave will be live streaming tomorrow as he normally does, probably 11 a.m. Eastern, I assume. So make sure you catch that. He has a lively stream. A lot of people doing repairs and stuff. We've got Trina's Techno Babble, and Trina also live streams. A lot of she does a lot of computer repair, and she's got a business, Computers with Pride, I believe. So, in Canada, she's in Toronto, so please look her up for your computer needs. We have Mitchell Valentino. Good morning. And we have Garth Beagle. Garth Beagle also live streams, not a lot on his own. He's done some shorts recently, and a few streams. So he is also frequent on Dave's show on Sundays. Who else do we have? Gut Bomb. Gut Bomb. Gut Bomb does a lot of stuff, including sells a few things. What's the name of that? It's a drive emulator for the Commodore 64 fast load, and that's something that he sells. And then there's a couple other things that he's working on that are pretty cool, so check him out. Bill Goetz. Yes. Bill Goetz is an interesting guy too. Does something that I used to do. He spins wool and does knitting and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But he also he messes around with vintage Apple tech and stuff like that. So I believe most of your online stuff is done through Twitch, correct? And null object, or nil object, I should say. I don't think I've seen you around, but I don't know much about you. K-Mac Vintage, another great guy he does an awful lot of rebuilding SEs and SE30s and other like replacing the logic board with new logic boards and rebuilding from the old chips, things like that. He's got a couple of great products too. He's helped me out quite a bit. I have an SE30 that was beyond my skill to get going, and he did me a solid getting that, replacing it with a new logic board and sending that to me. And of course there were other issues with that computer. The ROM sim was bad, so he very quickly sent me a replacement ROM sim for it. So thank you again, KMac Vintage. That SE30 is functional, and I haven't had an opportunity to do much with it yet, but I intend to. So thank you again. He also has a couple other products too, like the Dan 2 card is something that he sells for. I've got that in my Apple 2GS, so that I've got a drive solution for my 2GS. Yeah, so that's awesome. And Chris Angelis is here too. Oh, what's printing on the 3D printer? Oh, I can show you that. my wife has spinning wheels, and she never has enough bobbins for the spinning wheels. So this is something that I put together for her, based on the measurements of one of her existing ones. So I make her replacement ones. This PLA was some cheap junk. My address is showing. Oh, thank you. I'm not that concerned about it, but that's okay. So these are huge bobbins for spinning. And she has a custom-made spinning wheel. So the bobbins aren't standard. And although the bobbins are fine from the person that makes the spinning wheel, this gives her an inexpensive option so that she can spin them. And I added a little bit of shepherd and sheep decorations to it to reduce the weight. But yeah, so it's got a male-female connector in the center here, and I just epoxy them together. And of course, I have this PLA that I'm using is something I picked up at a garage sale or a vintage market or something. I can't remember where. And it is the god-awfulest worst PLA I've ever worked with. It oozes. I had to re-engineer the shaft diameter because it was too tight. And it's brittle. I dropped one, bounced off the carpet and broke. So, but you know, they're functional. I had to beef up the joint a little bit. So the last set that I made broke right here at the joint, so I ended up doing a 25% infill instead of 15%, and then did this little flare on the shaft to strengthen the joint. So I'm printing a replacement for the replacement for the replacement. Yes, Trina, so do I. This is something else I wanted to show you guys. So, Global Talk was a lot of fun. I haven't been doing much with it. I still have a Global Talk server running. If you guys aren't familiar, Global Talk is piggybacking an Apple Talk network onto the internet so that you can tie together multiple Apple Talk zones. So during Macintosh, there was a lot of activity with that, and people were jumping onto Global Talk and building that out. Well, one of the challenges is that I had a couple of laser printers, and I was trying to, people were printing to each other's computers or printers, and that was kind of fun. But I wasn't able to get my laser printers to work. One of them doesn't pick up paper, and the other one has a bad fuser. So I tried to do my Image Writer 2 and my Style Writer, but there are issues there. They don't really support being on a network, and there's software packages that do. For the Style Writer, there was Ghost Writer or Gray Writer or something like that. Unfortunately, it checks to see if there are other licensed versions. You have to use that software on both computers, and of course, the version that we downloaded has the same license as all the others, so it's refused to work. The other option is to have an Apple Talk card added to your Apple II, but those things are pretty hard to come by. But then there's Tash Talk 2. And this is a kit. It's a hat for a Raspberry Pi that gives you access to Apple Talk. So you can run a Netatalk server on your Raspberry Pi, and then you can connect stuff to it. So I should be able to set up sharing of a printer this way. So I'm going to mess around with this. I'll build this sometime. You know, if I've got some stuff to do this weekend, so I probably won't be on David's stream tomorrow. Maybe I will. I'll put that together and see if I can get it working. Otherwise, that's about it. So yes, don't forget to watch the Big Bad Biologist, Big Bad Bench. He's streaming at noon today. We've got David's stream tomorrow. I don't know if Tech Ambrosia is going to be streaming this afternoon. Sometimes she streams on Saturdays. Let's see. We can actually check and see who's going to be streaming. I have to start up Discord. So who else is going to be doing something? Can I make a beige version with an Apple logo sticker on it? Yeah, I could. Yeah, there's a PLA that you can get that is the right color of beige for the your traditional Macs. Unfortunately, it's very expensive and it comes from Europe. So there are a couple of I think Polyterra has something that's very close, as long as you're not too picky about exactly matching. I've done that I use it for my Blue Scuzzy bezels for my equipment. I did design or rather I modified one that Joe built. The front slot for accessing a floppy drive on an SE or an SE30. I wanted to be able to access my Blue Scuzzy SD card the same way. So Joe designed a bezel or an adapter that would hold the Blue Scuzzy and then present the SD card slot right where you would normally put a floppy in. Worked out pretty well, and I modified it to work with an SE30. You do sacrifice the floppy drive by doing that, but I don't use the floppy drives that much, so I didn't have a problem with doing that. Let's see who is okay. I finally got Discord to come up. Just a moment here, and we'll see who's been shamelessly promoting themselves. Boy, those emulators really suck up a lot of memory. Because this is slow to load. Really? Okay. So Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, yes, he is going to be doing his Sunday retro repair stream at 11 Eastern, and it looks like Bruce was online. I think that was yesterday. Yep, I'm not seeing a whole lot else. So anyway, that's what's going on. Let me switch back to the webcam. So that's about it. Got a bunch of other stuff I got to do today. So I'm not sure how much retro tech I'm going to get into. I don't even know if I'm going to have time to do this program. I think Cocoa Fest is going on right now, so there's some people there doing stuff with Cocoa. I know Sloopy's there, and so are some other people that are YouTubers. So um, make sure you check out what they're doing. Let's see what else is going on. VCF Midwest is still, I think it's 120 days away or something like that. So um, I'll be there. I hope to have a table. I'm going to have it set up with some vintage Macs. I'll be selling off some stuff too. And then I hope to have I will have a demo version of the program that I'm writing. It's a text adventure game in HyperCard called Adventure. Um, might even have the box set ready to just a demo unit of it because I intend to have a box set with a manual and things. Um, so hopefully that'll be there. Um, haven't heard about tables yet, so I don't know. What else is going on? So I have a Discord. I have, if you want to look me up on there, I've got, I'm on bitbang.social, Eric's Edge, so you can look me up there if you want to and chat about stuff. If somebody has a particular thing they'd like to see in HyperCard or whatever, let me know. I can whip that up and do it in another stream. I have a Ko-fi coffee if you care to contribute to that, or you can also do a Patreon. The nice thing about coffee is that it's 100%, goes to the creator. They don't take a cut. Patreon does. All the Patreon funds go right back out to other patrons. So there's that. But the coffee stuff I pretty much use to buy equipment or to do things like this. So if you care to contribute to that, go ahead. No pressure, worries about it. If you don't, that's fine too. Like and subscribe if you like this video. Please like it. If you want to see more HyperCard shenanigans, subscribe and you'll find out about them then. That's about it. I'll see you guys later. Get ready for the outro music.